Rain drizzled down the tin roof of the small outpost shack, drumming softly like a heartbeat in the quiet night. The human, Elias Grant, sat alone at his modest table, savoring the aroma of the stew he had spent nearly 2 hours preparing. Food wasn't easy to come by on the frontier world of Varela 9, not since the colony supply lines were severed during the war. Every meal meant rationing carefully, hunting when necessary, and bartering when possible. Tonight's stew, thick with root vegetables and a hint of meat, was a rare luxury. As he reached for the battered ladle to serve himself, a faint sound pricked his ears. A scuff of boots, the soft scrape of metal against metal. He froze, hand hovering over the pot, listening. Then he saw it, by the half-open window, a small figure crouched low, one thin arm reaching out with trembling fingers toward the steaming pot on the table. "Hey!" Elias barked, spinning toward the intruder. The figure flinched violently, nearly toppling backward. A hood slipped away, revealing a pale, delicate face framed by damp strands of silvery white hair. Large, luminous eyes, glowing faint blue in the lamplight, locked with his in pure panic. It was a girl. No, not just a girl. Asterisk, asterisk, an alien asterisk, asterisk, one of the native-born Varelans. And she was holding his ladle. Elias lunged forward before she could flee. Drop it. But she didn't. Instead, she yanked the entire pot off the table and tried to bolt. The weight was too much for her frail frame. She stumbled, the pot clattering to the floor, stew splashing across the wooden boards. Damn it! Elias grabbed her wrist before she could scramble away. "Let me go!" she cried, voice trembling but fierce. She twisted in his grip, like a wild animal, eyes wide with fear. Elias glared down at her, anger sparking at the sight of his ruined dinner. But it flickered when he truly looked at her. She was small, malnourished. Her cheeks were hollow, collarbone sharp beneath a thin tunic soaked through from rain. Her bare feet were caked in mud, and her lips trembled not just from fear, but from cold. She couldn't have been older than 16. Elias's jaw tightened. "Why were you stealing my food?" The girl froze in his grip, shoulders heaving as she panted. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then her glowing eyes darted toward the spilled stew on the floor, and he saw it, the raw hunger in her gaze. "Because," she began, voice cracking, "because my brother hasn't eaten in 3 days." Elias didn't let go immediately. He studied her, suspicion warring with the gnawing feeling in his chest. He'd been here before. Refugees sometimes came scavenging after the war, some desperate, some dangerous. But something in the girl's trembling voice gave him pause. "How old's your brother?" he asked gruffly. 8, she whispered. "He's sick. Please, please, he needs food." Her voice shook harder now, as though speaking the words broke something inside her. The human looked down at the mess on the floor, the last of his meat gone, broth soaking into the boards. The smell of it was still warm in the air, taunting both of them. With a heavy sigh, Elias finally released her wrist. She stumbled back, but didn't run. Maybe she was too tired. "Sit," he said, jerking his head toward the chair. The girl hesitated like a feral cat unsure of a trap. "I'm not going to hurt you," Elias muttered, already grabbing clean pot. "If what you said is true, I'll make more. For both of you." The alien girl blinked at him, startled, then slowly perched on the edge of the chair, shoulders hunched like she expected him to throw her out any second. As the stew simmered again, this time thinner, stretching his meager supplies further, Elias asked, "What's your name?" She stared at the floor. Asterisk, asterisk, Leary, asterisk, asterisk. "Leary," he repeated. "I'm Elias. Where's your brother now?" "In the old cargo hangar by the river," she murmured. "We sleep there. It's dry mostly." Elias frowned. He knew the place. It had been abandoned since the war ended months ago. Refugees camped there sometimes, but most had moved on when aid ships arrived. "Your parents?" he asked carefully. She didn't answer. Her hands just tightened in her lap until her knuckles turned white. Elias exhaled slowly. Yeah, he had his answer. When the stew was ready, he ladled some into a dented metal container and handed it to her. She clutched it like treasure, eyes wide. "For your brother," Elias said. "Take it before it gets cold." Leary stood, but didn't leave right away. She hesitated in the doorway, rain streaking her pale face. Then, softly, she asked, "Why are you helping me?" Elias leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry." For a heartbeat, their eyes met, hers bright with confusion, and something softer beneath the fear. Then she ran into the rain, clutching the food tight. Elias told himself that would be the end of it. But the next evening, as the wind howled outside, there was a timid knock on his door. When he opened it, Leary stood there again, this time with a small boy in her arms. He was thin as a stick, fever burning his cheeks, his little hands clutching the empty container from last night. "Please," Leary whispered, voice shaking. "He's worse." Elias stepped aside immediately. For 2 weeks, the outpost shack changed. Elias found himself cooking extra portions, hunting farther into the hills for game, trading tools with passing scavengers for sacks of grain. Leary came every evening with her brother, whose name was Taryn. At first, the boy was too weak to speak, but gradually, color returned to his cheeks. He began smiling shyly whenever Elias handed him a bowl of stew. Leary, however, remained wary. She ate little herself, always giving the best bits to Taryn. Elias noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way she shivered at night when storms shook the walls. She never spoke of her parents, never explained how two children ended up alone after the war. But sometimes, when she thought Elias wasn't looking, she stared at the fire with a haunted expression no child should wear. One night, as rain battered the roof again, Elias handed Leary a dry blanket. "You'll catch your death sleeping in that hangar," he said. "Stay here tonight. Both of you." Leary stiffened. We don't want to be trouble." "It's not trouble," Elias said softly. "It's a roof, and it's warm. That's all." After a long silence, she finally nodded. They stayed. Taryn curled up by the fire, asleep before he finished his stew. Leary sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea Elias had scrounged from his dwindling supplies. "You're too kind," she murmured finally. Elias shook his head. "Kindness doesn't cost much." She looked at him then, eyes glimmering. "It cost my father's life." Elias didn't speak, letting her words hang in the crackle of the fire. "They shot him," she whispered, "because he gave bread to the wrong side." Her hands shook around the mug. "After that, it was just me and Taryn. And no one left to care if we lived or died." Elias felt something twist in his chest. He reached across the table, resting his rough hand gently over hers. She flinched at first, but didn't pull away. "You're safe here," he said quietly. For the first time, Leary's eyes filled with tears. Weeks turned into a month. The hangar was abandoned for good. Leary and Taryn stayed in the shack. Taryn laughed now, chasing the old barn cat through the yard. Leary smiled sometimes, though rarely for long, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. Elias fixed the leaky roof. He built a second bed from scrap wood. He taught Taryn how to set snares, showed Leary how to make bread from the strange grain that grew wild on the hillsides. The war had taken much from all of them, but slowly in the small, ordinary moments, meals shared, storms weathered, firelight flickering against tired faces, something like family began to grow in its place. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, Leary stood beside Elias at the door. Taryn was asleep inside, curled beneath a patchwork blanket. "You saved us," Leary said softly. Elias shook his head. "No, I just gave you food." "You gave us more than that," she whispered. Her eyes shone like stars in the fading light. "You gave us a home." Elias looked out across the quiet hills, then back at the fragile, fierce girl who had once tried to steal his dinner. Maybe, he thought, she had given him a home, to